There was a time when music still asked something from you. A little patience, a little attention, a little soul. You didn't just find a song, you searched for it, saved up for the CD, rode the bus across town to that one record store, sat by the radio like it was a ritual, waiting hours for that one perfect track, and when it came, you didn't skip, you listened. Music back then had gravity. Songs could unfold, they could breathe, they could take you somewhere. You didn't need the first 5 seconds to explode because the 5th minute might change your life. Then the internet came, and the rush began. Suddenly, music was free, instant and infinite. Sounds like a utopia. For a minute maybe, but it didn't take long for that flood of freedom to turn into white noise. When everyone's shouting at once, only the loudest stands out. To rise above, artists had to get louder, simpler, faster. And when the streaming services and social media introduced the algorithm, it wasn't talent that won, it was engagement. Then TikTok showed up, chopping music into loops and clips just to play behind dances or makeup routines. Forget verses, forget bridges, forget meaning. All that mattered was the first 5 seconds. Did it slap immediately? No? Then it's gone. That's the world TikTok built. Songs were not written anymore. They were designed, reverse engineered for virality, produced not to move people but to hack them. And what did we get? A wave of fast food music, plastic and predictable, hooks made for toddlers, lyrics with the depth of a twit, the kind you instantly regret posting. Even I gave in, a grumpy old guy with opinions, and yet I still shot dozens of shorts for my prog metal project. Half of them are still sitting on my drive, and honestly I don't even know if it's worth editing and uploading the rest. Probably not, but if you're a creative, you'll get it. Sometimes you keep making things even when you're pretty sure no one's there to listen. Let's talk about now. There's something quietly interesting happening on the charts lately. For most of the late 2010s and early 20s, hip-hop, especially the mumble variety, had a near-total grip on the mainstream. Every top 10 looked the same. Lazy triplet flows, copy-pasted, trap cicada heads, and lyrics that sounded like a teenage flex gone stale. But lately, that grip has loosened. Take a look at the current Spotify charts. Suddenly there's pop, actual choruses, melody, songs that at least pretend to be songs again. I don't know exactly when that shift began, but I'm glad it did, because to me it says something simple. The industry kept serving fast food music, but people were craving something real. You can only take so much disposable sound before you start feeling sick. At some point you start craving something real. Maybe that explains the shift we're starting to see, and maybe, just maybe, that's why pop made its quiet comeback. Because even if the labels didn't believe in melody, the audience never stopped craving it. So the TikTok era of viral nonsense made for 15-year-olds is finally fading away. It was definitely a dark age. But now that it's almost over, we should celebrate, right? Well, not so fast. The thing is, the algorithm may have rewritten the rules, but it also reprogrammed the way we listen. Because once engagement became the North Star, everything else began to erode. Not just what music says, but how it sounds. Let's talk about the sound itself. I'm talking about the inflation of production. A decade ago, a fat, polished mix meant something. It told you this track had weight behind it. Time, money, and intent. But when everyone has access to the same tools, the same presets, the same YouTube tutorials, that shine becomes meaningless. Now every song sounds the same. Loud, compressed, punchy, and pretty much indistinguishable from the next. And rock and metal aren't the exception either. The sonic arms race has reached a dead end. We've maxed out the volume, the bass, the clarity, and yet somehow it all feels smaller. You hear it in the vocals too, or more like you don't. It's not that people aren't trying to whisper or scream, they are, a lot. But real singing, that's getting rare. So much modern vocal delivery lives in the same emotional register. Flat, restrained, and pseudo-intimate. That breathy bedroom pop whisper. That auto-tune speak-sing that's neither rapped nor sung. To me it sounds like non-commitment. And tuning vocals, it's not a bug anymore, it's a feature. Oftentimes it teases the sound now. Some artists have more control over melodyne than they do over their own voices, or they just dump it all on their mix guy. Meanwhile, the charts are filled with feel-good pop and a rising wave of latent flavored hits. And sure, it's sketchy, it's fun, maybe that's exactly what people crave right now with the world burning around them. But is it really a sign of a healthy musical culture? Or maybe people just want something that helps them forget? And about that genre variety, yeah, sure, latent trap, drill, emo rap, moody R&B, lo-fi beats, indie pop, hyperpop, even forest-core trap ballads for overthinkers. But when you strip away the branding, most of it runs on the same recycled progressions and beats. Luckily, now and then, someone still makes a real song. Something like Pink Pony Club by Chappelle Roan. This one's bold, theatrical, and unpredictable. It reminds us what a song can be when someone actually writes one. Sure, the mumble rap moment has passed, and pop has taken the front seat again. And thank God. But where's the rest? Where's the fire-breathing chaos of metal, or the emotional freight train of alternative rock? Still exiled to niche playlists and underground scenes. And let's be honest, it's not just label politics, it's culture. After a decade of hip-hop dominance, an entire generation of listeners has been raised on trap beats and flex raps. Teenagers, always the engine of music sales, simply don't crave distortion anymore. They crave dopamine. They crave familiarity. Let me tell you something about distortion, guys, while we're at it. Manowar. You can laugh all you want, but I'm serious. Their album Louder Than Hell recently hit me like a truck. I've listened to it 1,000 times back when I was a teenager, but I hadn't touched it in years, and when I finally put it on again, I was stunned. After all these years, it sounds so huge, punchy and clean, alive. There's something about it that modern records don't capture. And I say that as a mixing engineer. I know and appreciate the modern, perfect mixes from people like Jens Bogren, Zach Servini, Dave Castillo, but this hits different. This is strange, but to my mature ears, nothing, I repeat, nothing sounds as clean, powerful and sonically compelling as this album. It was mixed by Rich Breen, maybe not as widely known as CLA, but don't let that fool you. He's a top-tier engineer with multiple Grammy Awards and a ton of respect in the industry. He also did another Manowar album, The Triumph of Steel. Both of them sound fantastic, even by today's standards. One cool thing they did, and not a single band does this now, is span the bass and the guitar, left and right. This is an old-school approach, which Manowar were the last ones to implement, I guess. It gives the whole mix this unexpected width and character. Also, Joey DeMaio's bass tone on those albums is just wild. He plays these unconventional custom basses, and the tone is gritty, rich, almost orchestral at times. It cuts through in a way that feels physical. Sure, the lyrics are pure barbarian theater, but that was the whole point. That's the part of the charm. And if you can look past it, or better yet, lean into it, you'll find a sonic experience that unlike anything else. These albums came out in 1992 and 1996, and yet they still sound fierce. That's the mark of timeless production. But alright, back to the present, where things are a little less fierce, and a lot more forgettable. The music industry is still living in the shadow of TikTok Think, where attention spans collapsed and songs became disposable content bites. We spent years speeding things up, chopping out intros, front-loading hooks, compressing emotion into 15 seconds of don't skip. And underneath that sugar rush, something darker stuck around. We didn't just lose depth, we lost direction. The culture that once challenged power now worships cloud. Greed became a personality. Emptiness got a beat, and while the algorithm moves on, the damage lingers. How long will it echo? No one really knows. Sure, some of that era has passed, but its consequences haven't. We're still rebuilding from a decade of dumbing down. So where does that leave the artist? If you're someone who spends hours sculpting a mix, who obsesses over lyrics, who wants your song to mean something, this landscape feels like a desert. You pour your soul into the work only to watch a 7-second meme outpace it in plays by a factor of 1,000,000. And it's not just disheartening, it's disorienting. The rules have changed, but no one handed you a new map. And yet, you're still here. The question now is not how we got here. The question is, how do we move forward without losing ourselves? Let's talk about that. You're a musician, you care, you want to make something real. And yet, you're surrounded by noise, by trends, by the sense that if you don't simplify, if you don't conform, if you don't chase engagement, you'll just vanish in the stream. Welcome to the new music economy, where artistry often feels like an act of rebellion. The temptation is always there. Grab a loop, follow a template, crank out something good enough and move on. But here's the truth. If you do that, you're not really making music, you're just feeding the machine. So what can you do? You can resist if you're brave enough. You can stop relying on pre-made loops and recycled beats and start learning arrangement. Learn to write drum parts, not just drag and drop them. I'm no drummer, but I've watched several of Gavin Harrison's drum lessons. He's one of the greatest drummers in the world in my opinion. His parts are incredibly creative and unique. Unexpectedly, attending just one of his drum masterclasses in my city gave me a ton of production and arrangement tips that I still use in my work today. All I'm saying is it's incredibly useful to understand how to structure a track from the ground up. You don't need to become a one-man orchestra overnight, but every real decision you make replaces one lazy shortcut. And it shows. You can start singing, not talking, not whispering over autotune, singing. And if you can't, it's never too late to learn. Study with a real teacher, not a vocal coach who sells you a 3-week miracle on Instagram. Find someone who will teach you breath control, phrasing, how to use your head resonators. Someone who will make your voice a craft, not just a plugin preset. Pick up an instrument, any instrument, doesn't matter which, guitar, piano, drums, cello, as long as it speaks to you. Sound culture starts with real sound, and real sound starts with touch, with muscle memory, with intimacy. No software will ever teach you that. If you do rap, then rap like it matters. Read books. Explore jazz, classical, blues, electronic, metal, anything outside your comfort zone. Bring that knowledge into your bars. Make your hip-hop carry the weight of art history. Make it intelligent, make it fearless, make it yours. And for the love of music, have something to say. The days of flexing about Gucci belts and rented Lambos are numbered, I hope. We don't need another song about baddies in the club. What we need, desperately, are new and decent ideas. And that starts with you. Learn to record yourself. Recording gear is cheap, tutorials are everywhere, and self-sufficiency is power. If you want control, you need to know how to track your own vocals and instruments. You don't need $1 million studio, just care, effort, and a bit of knowledge. That's what this channel is for. I'll show you how. Not just how to press buttons, but how to listen, how to sculpt, and when those tracks get to a mixing engineer, how to make that mix hit. If you take it seriously, I'll save you thousands and get you 10 times closer to a pro sound. But if you do have the money, please go to a real studio. Just once. Book a session at a proper place with real acoustics and a real engineer. You'll hear your voice through a $4,000 mic into a $10,000 signal chain, and you'll know exactly what you're aiming for in your home setup. It's not about gear envy, it's about having a reference point. Of course, that experience can be awkward. If you're shy about recording vocals, you're not alone. I am too. A lot of singers freeze up under pressure. That's why finding the right engineer, someone who puts you at ease, is as important as any plugin. It's like finding a good therapist. And yes, you'll have to push through that fear once, just to experience it. But really, that's exactly why we're talking about home recording, so you can record yourself comfortably, without the pressure or awkwardness. This might be the most important part. Every artist, even if they don't notice it, is shaping the future. With every song, every word, every choice, you're setting the tone for what's coming next. A world built on kindness, reason, and depth, or one driven by greed, stupidity, and shallowness. You don't just reflect the times, you influence them. So ask yourself, are you adding more noise or helping build something that actually matters?